Every year, millions visit Singapore, and yet most of them make the same mistakes within the first 48 hours. They overspend, they break rules they didn't know existed, and some even get into trouble without realizing what they did wrong. Before you land in Changi, watch this. Singapore is a city that works so well it almost feels impossible to mess up here. The trains run on time, the streets are spotless, the food is world-class, and the crime rate is so low it feels like cheating. But the truth is, visitors still mess up a lot. Not because Singapore is dangerous or confusing, but because it operates on its own set of rules. Economic rules, cultural rules, weather rules. And if you don't understand them, this tiny island can drain your wallet, exhaust your body, and leave you wondering why your trip didn't match the videos you saw online. So in this video, we're breaking down the 6 most common mistakes tourists make and how to avoid every single one of them. From the hidden costs nobody tells you about, to the traffic patterns that can catch you off guard, to the weather that will test your patience more than anything else. If you're visiting Singapore soon, or planning your first trip, this might be the most useful travel guide you watch today. Mistake number 1, thinking Singapore is cheap. Let's start with the mistake almost every first-time visitor makes. Thinking Singapore is a cheap city. And to be fair, it looks cheap at first. $5 hawker meals, a train system where most rides cost less than a bottle of water, taxis that feel affordable compared to New York, London, or Sydney. But here's the trap. Visitors compare Singapore to its neighbors, Bangkok, Bali, Kuala Lumpur, and assume the entire trip will follow the same budget. It won't, not even close. Singapore is one of the wealthiest cities on Earth, recently ranked in the global top 5. And the moment you start booking accommodation, reality hits fast. Top-tier hotels regularly cross $500 a night. Even the budget-friendly hotels most travel vloggers recommend, $150 plus. And here's the part tourists forget. The price you see is not the price you pay. In Singapore, prices often come with something called plus. That means 10% service charge plus 8% GST added after checkout. The easiest math is to just add 20% to anything you see, and that's why so many tourists blow their budget on day 1. But here's the good news, you can avoid this mistake with a few smart local habits. Skip the hotel breakfast. It's 30 plus for something you can get at a hawker center for $6. Use the MRT or a bus for short trips. Taxis have a 3D surcharge in daytime, traffic that turns a cheap ride into an expensive wait. And if you're a coffee person, trade the $8 Starbucks latte for a local iced coffee C Kosong. It's strong, it's legit, and it costs less than $2. Singapore isn't a cheap city, but if you understand how it works, it doesn't have to be an expensive one either. Mistake number 2, not watching out for traffic. The second mistake visitors make in Singapore is something so simple, yet it surprises almost everyone: the traffic rules. Singapore is famous for order and safety, so tourists assume the roads will behave like a perfectly scripted movie. But watch any busy intersection for 5 minutes and you'll see the reality: cars turning into pedestrian crossings, even when the pedestrian light is green. For first-timers, this looks like chaos, but it's not. It's a system, and once you understand it, it makes perfect sense. Here's how it works. When the pedestrian light turns green, you can cross, but at many intersections, drivers are also allowed to turn at the same time. The city uses a shared right-of-way rule. It's efficient, it keeps traffic flowing, and it's totally normal for locals. The problem is that tourists don't expect it. They step out slowly, take photos in the middle of the road, or assume the car must stop. And that's when things get tense. The most important detail is the countdown timer. This timer isn't decorative. It tells you exactly how many seconds you have left to cross safely. When it hits 0, cars get full right-of-way. If you see only 2 or 3 seconds left, don't rush it. Just wait for the next cycle. Singapore runs on efficiency, you'll never wait long. And one more tip, make eye contact with drivers. Singaporeans are incredibly courteous, but visibility drops during rain or when traffic is heavy. A quick glance tells you instantly if the driver has seen you and is giving way. And if you want to avoid the whole situation entirely, use the overhead bridges or underground tunnels. They're everywhere, they're shaded, and they'll keep you dry during Singapore's sudden rainstorms. Singapore is safe, genuinely. one of the safest countries on Earth, but safe doesn't mean predictable. So don't let a confusing intersection turn your holiday into a stressful moment. Mistake number 3, accidentally breaking the law. The third mistake tourists make in Singapore is one that creates more fear than it needs to. Accidentally breaking the law. Singapore has a global reputation for being strict, the kind of place where chewing gum can get you fined, and where every law feels like it's written in bold capital letters. But here's the truth most people don't know. Singapore isn't out to punish you. It's out to keep the system clean, efficient, and fair. And if you're a visitor who makes a small mistake, 99% of the time you won't get punished, you'll get educated. The real problem is that tourists don't always understand the difference between the small rules and the serious ones. Let's start with the small ones, the rules almost everyone breaks without realizing it. Eating or drinking on the MRT, illegal. Jaywalking, illegal. Dropping litter, even something tiny, also illegal. Even the famous no chewing gum rule isn't actually about chewing the gum. It's about keeping the city clean. If you chew it politely and don't spit it out, no one cares. What they do care about is mess. For most of these, if you slip up, you'll probably get a gentle scolding from an officer or staff member. Something like, "Sir, no eating on the train, please." And that's it. But then, there are the big rules. Graffiti, drugs, getting drunk and starting a fight. These aren't treated as mistakes. These are treated as crimes. Singapore enforces these strictly. And tourists who cross the line often find out the hard way that the consequences are real. The bottom line is simple. Singapore isn't dangerous, but it is disciplined. And that discipline is exactly why the city looks and feels the way it does. Respect the rules, even the small ones, and you'll have one of the smoothest, safest travel experiences anywhere in the world. Mistake number 4, not preparing for Singapore weather. Here's the thing nobody tells you before you land in Singapore. The weather isn't just weather, it's a system you have to learn to operate inside. There are only 2 settings here: heat with humidity or heat with sudden rain. That's it. And if you don't respect that rhythm, the city will humble you very quickly. Most newcomers think they can handle tropical heat because they've traveled before. But Singapore's climate isn't hot. It's sticky, dense, heavy heat, the kind that wraps around you and doesn't let go. It's not unusual for visitors to walk outside for 5 minutes and suddenly feel like their clothes are glued to their skin. That's humidity working overtime. And then there's the rain, Singapore's sneakiest trick. One moment, blue skies. The next moment, the entire sky opens up like someone flipped a switch. This isn't cute drizzle. It's aggressive, city-stopping rain that slows movement, floods pavements, and disrupts everything. When it rains, you'll instantly notice 3 things. Walking becomes difficult, slippery tiles, deep puddles, and winds that flip cheap umbrellas inside out. Traffic explodes. Travel time can double because every driver becomes cautious. Taxis disappear. Singaporeans know rain means surge pricing and long waits, so they book rides before the first drop even hits the ground. This is why not preparing for the weather is one of the biggest mistakes people make. But the good news? Singaporeans have already figured out the hack. They never leave home without an umbrella. Not for rain, but because umbrellas are basically mobile shade panels. Tall buildings block wind flow. So umbrellas work perfectly in Singapore's low-wind environment. They're like shields against the sun and the storms. Another key rule, don't fight the rain. If the sky cracks open, Singaporeans don't force their plans. They wait, they adjust. They sit in a cafe for 15 minutes. Because they know the weather is temporary, but the consequences, wet shoes, missed buses, drenched clothes are not. And here's something newcomers learn the hard way. Humidity doesn't just affect your body, it affects your home. Clothes take longer to dry. Towels stay damp. If you don't use air conditioning or a dehumidifier, mold starts appearing faster than you think. Even locals battle this, especially in older apartments. So before you panic about the heat or complain about the rain, remember this: you're not doing anything wrong, your body just needs 2 to 3 days to understand the climate. Once you adapt, Singapore becomes one of the easiest cities in the world to move around in. This mistake is simple. The weather doesn't adjust to you, you adjust to Singapore. Mistake number 5, not going out at night. Here's a mistake almost every first-time visitor makes, especially my fellow Westerners. They treat Singapore like a daytime city. They wake up at sunrise, pack their schedule with attractions, grab an early dinner, and then they go back to their hotel and sleep. And this is where they miss the real Singapore, because unlike many cities where nightlife is loud, chaotic, or unsafe, Singapore transforms at night into something completely different. When the heat drops, the humidity softens, and the skyscrapers start glowing, the entire country comes alive. Hawker centers fill up with locals grabbing dinner at 10 p.m. Bars and riverfront spots buzz with energy. Night markets light up the neighborhoods. Families take late-night strolls. Joggers, cyclists, students, office workers. Everyone suddenly appears. Why? Because Singaporeans spend the whole day working. And the heat during the afternoon can make walking unbearable. So the night becomes their time, cooler, breezier, and honestly, way more fun. And tourists who stay indoors at night? They miss the side of Singapore that locals love the most. They miss seeing places like Clarke Quay, Chinatown, and Kampong Glam fully alive. They miss the late-night supper culture that defines the city. And they miss some of the best moments Singapore can offer. So if you want to experience Singapore properly, don't go to bed early. Go outside, walk around, eat, explore, get lost. Because Singapore isn't just safe at night, it's magical. Mistake number 6. Not realizing how walkable Singapore's core really is. Here's a mistake even seasoned travelers make. They underestimate how walkable Singapore actually is. Most visitors think, if there's an MRT station nearby, I must take the MRT. But Singapore's downtown core, especially around Marina Bay, Orchard Road, Bugis, and City Hall, is designed for walking. And not just walking, comfortable, shaded, air-conditioned walking. There are underground tunnels connecting malls, sky bridges linking buildings, shaded pathways wrapping around entire districts, and waterfront promenades, where you can walk for kilometers with some of the best city views in Asia. I see tourists riding the MRT one stop when the walk is faster, easier, and honestly way more beautiful. A classic example, tourists who miss the bayfront station for Marina Bay Sands often panic and rush to take the train back. But the walk from Marina Bay Station, it's stunning. You see the skyline, the water, the architecture, things you'd never notice underground. Same with Orchard Road. If you jump from Orchard to Somerset to Dhoby Ghaut by train, you miss the experience of walking through air-conditioned malls connected, like hidden tunnels beneath the street. Yes, Singapore is hot. Yes, it takes a day or two to adjust. But once you pace yourself, walking becomes one of the easiest and most enjoyable ways to explore the city. Conclusion. Singapore isn't difficult, it isn't confusing, and it isn't trying to trick visitors. But it is different. Different weather, different laws, different rhythms, different ways the city moves. Tourists who come with the wrong assumptions struggle. But tourists who come prepared, they discover one of the most efficient, safest, and enjoyable cities on the planet. Avoid these mistakes. Respect the rules. Walk when you can, stay out at night, adjust to the heat, and most importantly, experience Singapore the way Singaporeans do. If you do that, your trip won't just be smooth. It'll be unforgettable.